Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Keys to Real Estate. I'm your host, Mary Schuster. Well, we hope the recent interest rate cuts means we'll soon be hiring again in the real estate sector, and chances are your hiring needs and retention initiatives might be shifting soon. So we brought in an expert to help. Today is part two of my conversation with Deb Wiley, whose business and profession is people. Now, if you caught last week's episode, you already know that Deb is a senior professional in human resources, and she's the SVP in charge of people for North America with Pattison ID. She's a masterful people professional who helps her organization meet their most important strategic goals by making sure they have the right environment and human talent to help them go the distance. In today's conversation, we talk about how to improve our employee retention track records, how to combat burnout, what to do when a key employee decides to call it quits, and how to align your company's culture to better support your overall goals and create an environment where the best of the best will want to work and grow. So let's get into it with part two of my conversation with someone who has the talent, experience, and dedication to help us figure it all out. The people person, Deb Wiley. The presenting sponsor of the Keys to Real Estate podcast is RamQuest. RamQuest fosters a customer-first culture built around an unwavering commitment to provide solutions that don't just meet, but exceed expectations. RamQuest's newest title and settlement production solution, Horizon, delivers unparalleled efficiency, robust features, and scalability to ensure you have tools to boost productivity and elevate performance like never before. Horizon streamlines your operation with secure 24/7 access, automatic updates, and all the power that only the cloud can offer. Plus, Horizon offers a direct connection to the industry's most extensive network of service providers and partners. Experience Horizon for yourself when you visit ramquest.com. And now, please enjoy the show. On the topic of retention, we have a long tenure of our employees. Our industry tends to be kind of niche, and you either love it or hate it. And once you're in, or you hate to love it, but you stay in it anyway. There's a little bit of that too. But we also have a nearly infamous track record of people getting burned out. Like they just go and go and go, and they're in the yoke. They don't really complain or whatever. And then just one day you look up and they've had it and they're done. With employers that go wrong in not having a better employee retention track record for whatever the reason, burnout or lack of good employee culture ops, I'm going to work on getting that into my vocabulary because I love the way you put the rest of business concepts into those. What can employers keep in mind to help them have a better employee retention rate and track record?
Sure. So you mentioned burnout, which is something that I know, when I was working in real estate tech and in title production tech, such long hours that team keeps. And because the workload, the deadlines that come in, I think when you talk about burnout, you really have to make sure that you're setting up good processes for your team, that you have good tools and resources for them to use, that your software, your tools aren't antiquated where they're kind of on a treadmill and can't get work done. So look at ways how you can ease that work experience and make work easier for people to get things done. That's a lot of time that it leads to burnout. The other is like not having proper processes in place. When people don't have a roadmap on what success looks like, how things get done, how we behave, how we operate, they're constantly, like I said, on that treadmill of trying to figure things out. It can lead to burnout if you're solving the same problem over and over again. People need resolution to that. And then the other piece of that is just making sure that you have a strong staffing plan so that based on the workload, this is the amount of people that I'll need at any given time. And so that you're not burning your team out with excessive hours. So that's how, to address the burnout, which can lead to, turnover if you don't address it. Retention aspects, it's, again, making sure that you understand the pulse of your people, what's important to them, how are we making life easier for them, how are we caring about kind of that total whole employee well-being experience. Also, you have to make sure, are you paying properly? People will leave for pay if they're under market. So understanding what your comp philosophy is. Are you going to lead, lag, or match the market? And how will you build a workforce after that? And then I think that final piece of retention is just making sure that it's clear on what your culture is about. Are you living by your values? Are you making sure that there's zero tolerance for behavior that's outside of your core values? And those are things that make people want to stay a part of a community, want to stay in their position. And then you have development opportunities available. So it's kind of a mouthful, and I could probably go on for hours and hours about that. It's just, but I think it's multifaceted. But those are some of the key things.
Those are all sound like critical keys. What's something that workers say is important to them, but their boss might not understand or appreciate their importance? Like, I think different things are becoming differently important to workers today than they were even 3 or 4 years ago. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, I think what stands out to me, Mary, and the feedback that we receive is really around recognition. And I think as hiring managers, as leaders, we think it has to be something really grand, but it doesn't. A lot of times, a lot of people, just like those intrinsic recognition programs where it's non-monetary, it's just a thank you. It's praise. It's often in real time. Like if you hear someone on a call, you're walking by and they're talking with a customer and just really delivering on your values and delivering a great customer experience. After that call, tell them like, hey man, I heard you on that call. You were sensational. The way you walked that customer through those different stages and making sure that they understood what we were doing for them, it was really impressive. That goes such a long way. Just simple appreciation. I think the other thing that we may not value as much is the lack of communication. A lot of times we feel like, well, I told them, we sent an email out. We announced it in the town hall. You have to reiterate those messages. You have to over communicate. And then you have to make sure that what you have communicated has been understood and received. And then the third thing, I think, rounding that out is really clear expectations. A lot of times people think they're doing the right thing. They think they're working on the right thing. But if they're not getting that ongoing feedback on what's most important and prioritization, then they're not clear on what's expected of them. So I think that's, in a nutshell, kind of the top 3.
A good recipe. Yeah, I think that sounds good. I need to go back over into the lane of burnouts again, because again, our industry's been getting by on some kind of low staffing levels, and they're getting ready to get very busy again, and their employee ramp up time may or may not coincide. So some of their water carriers are, if they're not approaching burnout yet, they risk it soon. So I want to focus in again on that scenario a bit. When someone is burned out, when you have a great water carrier that hauls the mail and they're burned out, does throwing more money at that employee help or not? And why and when? And what should people think about that?
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think it depends on a lot of different circumstances. If their burnout is because, hey, they're really being overworked, this is a high performer, high potential, they embody your core values, but gosh, they are way under market. You're paying them closer to the 10th or 25th percentile, then yeah, maybe adjusting their compensation will help if that's the driver. But if it's something else and you just throw more money of it, but you don't fix the policies that are broken, you don't solve for the issues that are leading to the burnout, you don't hire more people if you are understaffed, then it's just kind of a short-term boost, but it won't typically be sustainable if you don't solve it at the root cause of what's causing the burnout.
And that can be some of our best employees that technically are so proficient, but that their attitude can erode over time with long-term burnout. And so I think a lot of employers get in this conundrum of, well, this is Jesse or Sally, and they are my best, or they used to be my best. They are my workhorse, but man, they've been kind of polluting everybody on the team lately. And what do I need to do about it? And I think it can get very tempting to throw money at that problem. And to your point, money is not always, or is often not, the problem that needs to be fixed in that equation.
Sure. And there are sometimes when you have that great producer, like you said, a workhorse. Now, if there's like been a recent change in attitude, now that's where you can really rely on like stay interviews and really sitting down with that person, letting them know that you're noticing a change, how much you value and appreciate them, and you'd like their perspective on what things that we can do to make their job easier. So if it's a new attitude, I definitely would double click on that and figure out, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's causing your job to be more strained lately? What are some things that I can do to make it easier? A simple feedback question that hiring managers can have in their one-to-one sessions is, start, stop, and continue. What things can I start doing to make your job easier? What should I stop doing that's getting in the way of your success? And what's going right? What should I continue doing and helping you and supporting you? So that's, now if it's a person that's always had an attitude, I always like to tell our leaders, you will receive as much as you're willing to tolerate. And so if you're willing to tolerate that bad behavior, not only is it undermining your leadership, it's undermining your culture, your teamwork, and your values. So I would be very cautious of continuing, those kind of bad apples just because they produce at a high level. It should have a well-rounded kind of experience that everyone is required to work together as a team, show respect, civility in the workplace, and produce great results. So I do see them as a little separate there.
That makes complete sense to me. Support for today's episode is provided by October Research. October Research provides national coverage of case law, news, regulatory updates, and competitive business strategies critical for sustaining an innovative and compliant real estate business operation. Our portfolio publications offer independent and unbiased information that helps you stay educated and informed on what matters most to your business. So visit octoberresearch.com to learn more about our portfolio of real estate publications, sign up for free email news, educational webinars, and premier industry events for thought leaders. Knowledge, the competitive advantage. I would like to ask you a little bit about the annual review, if we could. Most people kind of, it's annual review time. It doesn't matter if they're on the reviewer or the employee side of that, but there's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. First of all, if you're not doing them, I'd like to hear what you think about not doing them. But also for people that are in the habit of doing them, I'm wondering if, generally the topics of reviews, do they need a makeover or do you have some tips for making them actually more impactful and meaningful? Because I think a lot of people are literally just checking the boxes and calling it done.
Sure. I love this. So I'm not going to HR shame. I think annual reviews are better than nothing. Okay. And I think that if that's all you have right now, then make the most of it.
Okay.
If you can, I would strive to get to more of a quarterly cadence and then really creating a culture of feedback. And so that it's continuous, it's in real time. In your monthly one-to-one sessions, maybe you're offering some feedback. They are tied to objective goals. I think really help for reviews to be impactful. And just think of it this way. I don't know. I think I was listening to a podcast and it was about annual reviews. And a lot of the complaints that I hear from employees about annual reviews, it's like, man, it would have been nice to know those things back then because I would have had an opportunity to change the behavior and work on it. It becomes a bit of history. It's just like, think about finance. There's no way in heck that there wouldn't be that finance would go a year and then do their year-end closing, right?
That's true.
No, they're doing it month end. They're finding out where we are with our financials. It's similar to where we need to be with feedback. Don't wait the whole year to tell the employee how they performed, because what happens is like the quote of, I need to get this right. Sorry.
Okay.
It's, oh, don't grade my paper. Teach me how to get an A. So
Oh.
the thing with annual reviews, it becomes this really kind of one-sided experience. It's the manager giving feedback while the employee listens and is really being evaluated. Whereas if that's ongoing, it's really a dialogue and it's two-way feedback, and you're measuring and checking success in different intervals. So I think, again, I don't want to shame people. So if you have annual reviews, I think you tie them to business performance, make them objective, and so that they're really tied to tangible outcomes that you can measure. And the third thing would just be, if you can, talk about those things throughout the year. It shouldn't be a surprise for people to understand where they stand in their reviews and in their performance.
Oh, from your lips to God's ears, that I think would make a huge improvement. And one of the things too that I noticed as a manager when I was that when I brought in and it wasn't my idea, it was a company initiative. A lot of companies don't necessarily have, especially smaller companies, have a trajectory path, a climb the ladder path. And so we started focusing on making professional development a goal in each review, and what that allowed was the employee to go ahead and broaden out their skill set. Even if we didn't have a job for them up here yet or today, they were still getting some of that juice, some of that fun, some of that engagement. And so I've become a real big proponent of having a professional development required. And it also is an opportunity for the company to show for further investment in that employee. Like, yes, and we're going to pay for this, not your, master's degree, but this course, this certification, this new knowledge. I don't know if you've have a lot of thought about that, but I've become a real convert on it.
No, absolutely great point. Even as a part of our annual review process, and we have a 6-month check-in, and then we're working on establishing those quarterly reviews. But part of that process are annual career goals that the person has, and making sure that we're keeping whatever their unique career ambitions are, we're keeping those top of mind and helping them grow within our organization to reach that goal. And so, great point. And professional development should absolutely be tied to your coaching sessions, those quarterly check-ins, and as a part of your annual assessment review as well.
You are sounding like the employer is a partner with the employee in the employee's career.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do think I love that you make that point, because a lot of times from employees, which I have just a very strong love for, and making sure that I'm representing the voice of the people. But sometimes I can see it's where, well, what are you going to do for me? And it does have to be a partnership. Employees have to raise their hand for stretch assignments. They have to be clear on, hey, here's where I see my career going. How can I achieve this at this company? What are some things that I need to work on in order for you to see me as in a promotion readiness? Asking those questions, raising your hand. It does have to be a partnership. I love how you tied those together, for sure.
I love how you're bringing all these very clear business topics from other elements of the company right into the people business, because it makes complete sense. But so many individuals think that the people business has a totally different mindset and philosophy. And you're going, no, you run it just like the rest of your business, the critical, important part of the rest of your business.
Exactly. It's right there. At our company, we value CX and EX. And then we have, other KPIs, but those are important things that we're looking at on our senior executive calls on a weekly basis. How are we doing on those things? Because they go together. You're not going to be able to fully serve and delight your customers if your team doesn't feel that way. How are they going to give what they're not receiving? And so the two are linked together, and the two take on need, emphasis, and focus on both areas for sure.
You are really demystifying this for me. Thank you. It all sounds very manageable and doable when you think about as you think about other departments in your company. Just don't think of it as some big mystery. Just apply the steps just like you do in, I love the marketing analogy. That's perfect. All right. I have a few more questions.
Okay.
Because you're giving us such good stuff
Oh,
here.
I love it. Let's go.
Okay. Okay. So let's say might be burnout, might be not, but you have a valued employee. I'm going to give you some scenarios. Ready? A valued employee, just, and this is somebody that's been a valued member of the team. They're going to be difficult to replace, and they come in and they submit their resignation to you. What should the employer say or do in that time?
And it's tricky, and it really depends on a couple of factors, I think. So first off, it depends where they are in your organization. It sounds like this is a high performer. It's been great. You have to find out, well, what led to this decision? If it's something where you can address in your organization, for instance, it's, man, this is a great performer, doing great. It's been with us for a long time. Great team player. Customers love them. But gosh, we haven't really given them an increase in 3 years. You should look at, is this driven by financial reasons? And maybe make an adjustment, but have a conversation with the person. If it's, oh man, this person is taking on, they're getting promoted into like 2 levels up from where they are here, I really can't compete with that. It's more in line with their true ambitions and goals. I'm happy for them. I'm glad that they were here with us and shared their expertise with us. And I, congratulate them on their next steps. I do think we have to be willing to support our team when it's time for them to move on. The other piece, hey, are there things about our environment that has made their work more difficult? And so they're doing this out of, man, I've tried to make changes, we can't make changes. And there I would see, hey, what adjustments can we make in order for this person to stay? So I do think it's tricky. It depends on the situation, but I think sometimes you should ask, hey, what would it take for you to stay? Is this something that we can resolve? And then other times you have to be willing to let go when your environment can no longer offer them what they need. And you have to be careful too. Sometimes we think, gosh, I can never replace that person. It's going to take forever. And it's just better to throw money at them so that I can keep them. I'm going to invoke a little pop culture here. Think about Bennifer. Sometimes getting back together or trying to save a breakup, it's just time to break up and let go. So it's a lot of different scenarios that could happen there. Sure. It just depends on the situation. But I think those are the things to be mindful of before you make that decision. But at all stages, set up an exit interview, understand what led to that decision. Think about what is it about our culture that in our environment that an A player wanted to leave. What do we need to do differently? So use it as, be reflective and understanding your organization.
Well, I'd like to pivot to the topic of culture, if we could, because this is another one that I think a lot of company owners and managers hear about company culture, and everybody knows you want a good company culture. But I think if they don't live in the world that you live in, they might not have thought through what a lot of the elements are. And in some of our conversations previously, I know that sometimes what you're looking for intentionally is a disruptor. And your staff might not be ready for that, or maybe not understanding why you've made a disruptive hire. And other times, you might need somebody that just blends right in. You mentioned some sort of pre-testing sometimes to make sure that culturally it's a good fit. And obviously culture is getting a little more complex right now than maybe it's been in the past. So when you're hiring, and just, I would love for you to talk about some of that with having an eye and hiring for and managing culturally. What specifically are some things that are meant by that?
Sure. So for me, especially, I love taking on projects and joining organizations where there needs to be a transformation. And your culture should always be evolving. So I think it's very important to make sure that you're hiring for the culture that you want to cultivate.
Okay.
You're hiring people that you feel like they're going to advance your mission and make your organization better. So when you think about, when you say disruptor, I like the term that you use there. Sometimes you are going to have to hire people that, maybe your current staff needs to be trained up to get to that level. Maybe they've been with the company a long time. They rely on a lot of past experience, and this is how we've always done it, kind of thing. And so when you bring in that new person, and I love to do this when you bring them in from a different industry, what is a nice fresh set of eyes that they can have on your practices, on how you do things. And so, but you have to make sure that they also feel welcome and supported. So that's where the connection comes from. That's where it's bringing your team together. Establishing a communication cadence so that the team is coming together and everyone is clear that these are the objectives that we're after. This is the why we're doing it. And people can rally around that. And then they can start kind of getting in the mood for change. But that's about change management and making sure that, again, it goes back to what's the culture that you want? How are you going to be successful in your business, in your space? Making sure that you're serving the customer, and hire for that and people that were going to advance that mission.
Well, and to combine several of your earlier points with this one, change management, in my experience, has been the biggest driver of how successful you are from getting from where you are to where you want to be. And you said it perfectly earlier when you said, "Hey, the owner will say, we're doing this, we're going this way. I told them, why aren't they going?" And that change management is such a process. I'm sure you've seen a lot of ideas be successful or fail based on the degree of change management that was involved in them.
Absolutely. It's the easiest thing to get wrong, and it's hard because, people are, they're so resistant to change. It's that letting go of what was familiar, of what they knew, of where their identity came from. And in order for a transition to happen, the old ways have to die. But people are tied, and I know that sounds heavy, but
Yeah.
people are tied to those old ways. So transition happens when someone has let go of the old ways, and they're not still using the old process. They're not doing it manually because they don't want to learn the new software. They let those things go, and that takes a lot of patience. That takes a lot of communication. That takes transparency. And that takes a real focus on making sure that people understand where we're going and why the change is necessary. We've actually just, gone through some changes in our organization, and I've implemented kind of this transition monitoring team. And this is this will be an employee-led team where they're coming together and we're talking about, how are these changes impacting you now? What things do we need to talk about more and give you more insight on? What's resonating? What's not about our communication? Involve your people in change management, and it will make it a little bit easier. But it's difficult. But once you get through it, man, you can really open up for success in your business.
Yes. And I've seen, as I'm sure you have, more owners and executives frustrated having to abandon a change that they had as a key priority because the change was abandoned. It was not adopted. It was orphaned, and they get so frustrated they don't see the ROI, and they've had to ditch the vision. And when that middle bit of change management can be so critical to having success or abandoning initiatives.
Exactly. And it comes down to that over communication.
It does, doesn't it?
It's, making sure that people understand the why. What's their part in it? How will the business be impacted? How will I be impacted? But a lot of it too is that personal connection with, this is the way it's always been. This is what I know. It's scary not knowing what to do. and you feel like you're starting over. Like, I have to learn something new. I'm the expert. So it's that vulnerability and building that trust in your organization so people can get more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so well said. Well, so when a leadership team or an owner determines what they want their company culture to be, regardless of what they decide that is, they've
Mhm.
identified it. So, what are some culture enforcing activities that can make a positive difference for employees and help bake in that those culture decisions and make them be reflected in the workplace?
Yeah, you're going to hear me say it so many times. Communication, communication, communication. It's really making sure that every level, every position understands and has clarity on what's important in the business, what the goals are, and why we're doing it. And then it gets into, here are our core values. Here's how we behave. Here's how we treat each other. Here's how we operate it. And having a zero tolerance when those violations happen to that. And then it's about keeping the team together. So many companies now are working in hybrid organizations. Some are remote. It's more coming to full-time 5 days on, but it's still very a high percentage of hybrid. So it's about having a really strong communication cadence, making sure that you're having timely all hands or town hall meetings so that you can keep people connected and keep them engaged in what's important, and for them to really feel that kind of teamwork, kind of team oriented atmosphere. Also, I think, really building a community in your environment. So maybe it's volunteer opportunities that you can take on together, and making sure that you're really giving back to the communities that you serve in, and you're doing that together. Those are things that make people feel part of a great organization. They feel included, and they feel a sense of belonging. And that always is going to advance your culture. The other part of that is really development. People want to go to organizations where they feel like they can grow and develop and get better and learn, and then share that expertise. So having mentorship programs, I think those are things that really make your culture palpable. Those are things that are going to attract and retain really great people in your organization.
Such good advice, and I'm with you. I could ask you to stay on with us all day, but I know we need to start landing the plane because you've been very generous with your time and thoughts. But when if you had to, if I asked you about the 10 commandments, but I asked you what would number one need to be, what should people keep top of mind when trying to attract talent? What is the number one piece of advice you would give?
Let's see. I think it goes back to your employee value proposition and being clear on what distinguishes you from other people in your space, other companies in your space. So I think it's about, what do you offer as an employer that an A player would want to raise their hand and run to your organization and want to contribute at a high level. So I would start with that. Who are you? What's your identity? If I just had to choose one thing.
That sounds like a good one to me. Well, I thank you very much for your expertise. I love how your passion for all that you do really shows through. And we just really appreciate your taking some time and helping us brush up on some of our skills that, thank goodness, sounds like our industry is going to be needing soon. We do appreciate your expertise.
Oh, thank you, Mary. It's been so wonderful. I love talking people ops. And so thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks again, Deb. This conversation is such a great reminder that we need to not only find and hire amazing people, but we also need to work hard at creating and sustaining a place that is amazing for great talent to work and thrive in. It's a give and take that goes well beyond merely a paycheck. And some of your reminders about positive recognition and continuous communication are free things that go a long way in sustaining our employees' satisfaction. So, thanks for helping us think about all that a little bit differently. Now, audience, we know we've given you a lot of information to process and possibly implement during this first season of the podcast. And we're going to keep delivering the quality content you need to ensure your business stays well tooled and functioning smoothly. And also, several of you have reached out to say that you need more time to digest it all and put it to work. So we're going to take a little break and let you brush up on any episodes you may have missed. We'll give you a bit of extra time so you can focus on tooling up your operations and preparing for a higher order count. But we'll be dropping into your feed from time to time with new guests and hot topics that your business needs to thrive. So I hope you've hit the subscribe button already, wherever you're watching or listening, so that you'll never miss an episode. Now we're going to refresh and retool for season 2, and we'll stay alongside you as together we navigate whatever comes of a chaotic election season, lower interest rates, and always unique industry challenges. So my email address is always included in the show notes. And if there's a guest you'd like to hear from or a topic you'd like to learn more about, just drop me a note and let me know what interests you. Because as we begin planning our second season, we want to bring the guests and topics that will most help you hold your keys to real estate. So thank you all so much for coming along with us during our inaugural season. And when I look back at the topics and guests who have joined us so far, we hope we've met our goal of providing you and your staff with the quality conversations that can help you approach your work in a new and invigorating way. So until next time, stay with our October research industry publications and webinars for the latest and most critical news that impacts what we all do. And we'll keep bringing you the knowledge you need the most, because we know that knowledge is the competitive advantage.